So yeah, I think that there's a lot of commentary around this whole kind of irritation with anything that does not sound positive, that does not sound favorable to any one side, whatever that side may be. And if you look at any debates these days on any issue related to to corona and what could have been done and couldn't be done, you will find 30-40% of the audience, maybe 30% of the audience, happily take very stringent partisan positions. And in my view, there is a place for partisanship. I'm a political guy myself. I love partisan debates. They're good because they move our society forward, right? Any partisan debate moves society forward. But what we are seeing in a crisis is, intense partisan debates actually don't create consensus, don't move forward. And if you remember the Brits during the World War II, they came together and formed a national government. They did that because there was a massive threat. And I think at this moment, the partisans aren't able to move. And this is, instead of trying to diagnose the problems that tend to happen, you will have very, very shallow, and I will particularly point this out to Delhi. And I think it's now spreading everywhere, this virus of partisanship. In Delhi, you have two extreme positions. Either Modi is responsible or Kejriwal is responsible. The fact of the matter is, and I did a poll this morning just to test out, because I believe that there is a third problem there, and I will explain that in a minute, that I gave them three options. I said, is the municipal corporation responsible for the mess? Is the Delhi government responsible for the mess, or is the national government? And not surprisingly, they split between the national government and the state government. In my view, one of the reasons we find ourselves in such a big mess in Delhi is because of the complete failure of the municipal corporation there. The municipal corporation has certain responsibilities. And how do we know that? Because we know how the municipal corporation in Mumbai works completely. And I can see that while Bangalore is still struggling a bit, the Bangalore Municipal Corporation also works in a certain way. Where is the Delhi Municipal Corporation? They've just disappeared. The point I'm trying to make is that the diagnosis, at least let's throw hypothesis that might be the reason, instead of trying to say, okay, how do I protect my great leader, whether it is Arvind Kejriwal or Narendra Modi? In my view, this is like an absolute race to the bottom. And this is why so many people are dying. It's no more fun, but me getting 3% more vote. It's actually about people dying and making absolutely no progress forward. This is my opening statement. Please, guys, join in and make your own statement.
So I am not sure about the Delhi. I'll make a point, but on the Delhi bit, is the same municipal corporation which has been doing some fantastic work for the last X number of years under Kejriwal when it comes to water, when it comes to electricity, when it comes to schooling, when it comes to all these things. It's the same municipal corporation. So I don't know why suddenly they should perform so badly, except that there's a lot of problems being created by the central government. They have been creating a lot of problems for a while on so many issues. Despite that, Kejriwal has been able to deliver. So I'm not very sure whether it's municipal corporation. Anyway, I don't live in Delhi. I'm not very sure of the ground realities. I think if you see the current, so what is the point, Subhash, you're trying to make? You're trying to make point that who's really responsible for this?
My point is that during a crisis, partisanship does not contribute to things moving forward, which means trying to prove my party is great is actually it creates an environment where you don't come up with new ideas. There aren't solutions because partisans tend to be more rigid than people who are in between, right? Party loyalists tend to be rigid. That's how you become a loyalist. You become loyalist because you have a rigid position. And rigidity in a crisis is a very dangerous place to be in. That's all. I'm making a slightly different point from, BJP, AAP and Congress, that kind of stuff. That's just an example. But I was trying to make a point that partisanship, which might serve very well for a political party, is not great for problem solution, particularly in a national crisis. And I think we all agree now that we're in a national crisis.
Okay.
So, Subhash, I think, that overall, this party politics around this thing is reducing, right? I mean, you're hearing much less of it than what you were hearing a few days back when, Modi shouted on Kejriwal in a meeting or whatever else, right? But overall, it's on a decline, and because of the UP polls and some of these, again, it kind of came to the front, right? And overall, it's a little less and more tolerable than what it could have been, right, given the state of our nation. And thankfully, there are no more elections coming up immediately, right? Because if there's another set of elections coming up, I'm sure the decibel on that would have been dramatically high, right? And I also agree with what Farish is saying, right? If you want to solve any problem, the first thing to do is to leave the politicians out of it, right? Because I don't think they're interested in solving any problem whatsoever, right? But sitting from a distance, it looked like a political issue. It looks like an administration issue, this, that, right? But over the last few days, I've been dealing with a COVID situation in my own home, right? And I realized that, we get what we deserve, right? And we as people, like, are equally responsible for all the shit that's happening around us, right? I mean, the amount of, uh, free ridership that's happening, right? It's incredible, right? I mean, there's so many people out there who don't give a damn, right, to death and to COVID and all, and they're just trying to make their own buck and make their own money and get out of the situation, right? I went to get my mom vaccinated, right? You should have seen the queue. It doesn't look like there's any COVID. That people are huddling in, groups of 5, 6 strangers talking to each other, mask down. You tell them that get into a queue, they'll say, "Wait, what's the problem?" And I was telling them, if there's no problem, then why are you wasting a vaccine, right? Go back home. Right? So I think we have got found out on many, many different levels. And it's a big revelation for us. I mean, you saw Lancet's, yesterday's comments, right? They have been as scathing as it gets, right? And you can ignore it, but I think the whole systemic failure is, staring at our face. And thankfully, from whatever I'm seeing, obviously we have all reduced news consumption. That's generally the sense I get when talking to people. And generally they're reducing news consumption in this stage, right? But within whatever I'm seeing, I think the partisanness of it is only reducing day by day rather than increasing, which is a massive relief from how I see this. Does it make sense?
My view on this is slightly different from Subhash's view, which is that, I mean, it's not, I mean, I agree with you that partisanship is not good in crisis, but the partisanship is not a function of this crisis, right? It has taken a certain direction for some time now. It's not today that, I mean, and I don't think the two groups are talking to each other, right? I mean, even in school and college groups where, you are friends who are there because you want to be connected to each other, there is no talking to each other. It's just that, one person taking their point of view, the other person taking the opposite point of view, and then somebody leaving the group. So somewhere we are not discussing. We are only saying what we want to say, and then we get upset when somebody questions that, either logically or emotionally, and then so it's a direction that we've been moving in, and the situation here again has come to a stage where there is obviously mistakes that have happened, and so somebody needs to be fixed. So depending on which side of the table you are, the other guy is responsible. So I think it's just a continuation of what is happening. I fully agree that it is not helping, but that's how not just India, the world has been moving. And I don't know if there is a solution to solve this. This is the current context of social media and echo chambers and so on and so forth. I mean, I think it's just I don't see a solution. I mean, I know that it is a problem, but there is a solution.
But Anand, what Subhash was saying is interesting, right? Isn't it that in such kind of crisis you expect a lot more cooperative behavior, right? I mean, in general, right? And I'm not sure how much
It
of
is
cooperation
happening
is
at
there or not.
It is happening at individual level, right? It's only the part. See, the discussion that's happening between party loyalists is different from what's happening on ground, right?
Yeah, I
On
guess,
ground,
yeah, I think one thing that's happening is, I just want to separate two parts to it. One, I think Anurag, we have found out at many levels, this is a fact of life. And I think I've seen that myself in terms of whether it is a kind of a strange kind of lack of awareness, irresponsibility. I heard of a death case yesterday where a person, was absolutely floating around the entire city after having tested positive. So there is that behavior, and that has been found out. It is also a cultural issue. So that is one part of the problem as well. And I agree with Anand also in terms of saying that this is not a new problem. It is just at a crisis, it tends to get overstated. But here is what I'm also observing is that there is a separate group of people, which may include a small sprinkling of partisans who are also coming together to mobilize and help. So that is also a great narrative, and I don't want to take that away from this entire thing. Saying that, of course, a lot of positive work is happening. People are striving like dogs, I think 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day sometimes, trying to help people. And there are so many stories which also tells you of a culture in our country which is the dominant culture of trying to help people I don't even know, right? That's another side, and all of us personally have experienced it. So there is that side as well. But I brought this around because I also feel that this is an inhibitor, and this is probably a learning for future crises as well. That how do we kind of manage partisans better? Because had this been a war against China, you never know where this would end with, people working at each other at cross purposes. So it's very, very important to understand this dynamic. But are we saying that this dynamic is the only thing that is causing the crisis or pulling us downwards? The answer I wouldn't say is yes. I would say yes, it's a big problem, but is it the only and the biggest problem? The answer would be no.
If I could just add my point of view, see, the partisanship has reduced ostensibly, visibly, because the most aggressive of the partisan parties, which is the WhatsApp party, Modi's party, and their loyalists who are so dominant to WhatsApp, have nowhere to hide now, right? Because they can't show their face anymore, because they have realized at some level that they have fucked up. But they are singularly responsible. There are other reasons too, but Modi is singularly responsible, like somebody said, he's a super spreader for doing something like this, right? So as a result, visibly, it's coming down. And they also know how effective our big loyalists you also know how effective the party is, what their main obsession is, what their agenda is. So people have given up hope when it comes to administration, largely, not, let's say, pockets like Bombay could be an exception. And expecting from political parties, and started mobilizing resources on their own and figuring out things on their own, which is why that is not part of the dominant or whatever discourse anymore. It will come back very soon, because that's what they are very, very good at. Number one. Number two, I think fundamentally, as a society, despite the 5,000 years of culture BJP talks about, or RSS talks about, or the right wing talks about, I think fundamentally, one of the most corrupt social fabrics ever in this world, right? And that's visible everywhere. From simple things, nobody wants to stand in a line, nobody wants to do the right thing, nobody wants to, genuinely help somebody. The other day somebody was saying there is nothing for elderly people when it comes to queue or anything, right? So nobody wants to do anything. Everybody wants shortcuts. Everything, sabka jugaad hai. It's not being jugaad is not to take pride in, actually. And we are absolutely corrupt to the core at every level. Every level. I'm not talking about one individual here and there, but on an average. And that's what is reflected in our political system. And the politicians, they don't exist in a vacuum. And that's what is coming back to us, because we've never demanded the right things. Like we were asking for, mandir instead of asking for infrastructure and all of it. So this is what will happen. On that average, everybody gets screwed, and some people who probably don't deserve also will get screwed. And there's collateral damage. So yes, people are definitely responsible. In fact, we are more responsible than anybody else. It gets reflected in our political party. But there are certain situations, absolute national emergencies, where it boils down to the decision making of 1, 2, or 5 or 10 people, right? And we are in a crisis like that, right? It's like a war situation. You can't say we lost the war to Pakistan because the people were bad. No, it's not. It's the army, then it was responsible. It was then the whatever powers to be. Similarly, in such national emergencies, it has to come down to a few people, and that's when we have absolutely miserably failed, because they have not solved it; they have caused it. But
Ravi, you want to add something?
Ravi is listening. I think he accidentally logged on to participants.
Yeah. But I think Vasu made a great point, right? I mean, don't you guys all feel that there is this sudden lack of a figurehead in the country? I mean, few days back, right? I mean, about 2 months back, 3 months back, the VK Paul was very active as one of the, the spokesperson on COVID. There was Health Ministry doing some chat. The Niti Aayog was kind of, leading the ICMR and this, that. But in today's extreme crisis, I think there's nobody I see who feels like that this is the person who is spearheading this whole, a mission and kind of making sure that things happen in place, right? Do you guys feel that lack of absolute top leadership here?
Anurag,
There's no positive media coverage going to come out of it, right? Which is why none of the deadly duo will not be anywhere close. And even the rest, they have nothing to say. I mean, the rest of them, Piyush Goyal, they are idiots. Yeah, I mean, they have nothing to say.
Vasu, let's let me just take this progress forward. I just want to understand, Anand, you have a view on even from your own work, etc., as to when there are polarized groups in any situation. What makes them work together, and what circumstances they can actually come together? Because I feel that's the opportunity.
So one thing we know that most discussions, unlike what we normally think, right? Discussions will help resolve. The general outcome of discussions are normally further polarization, because you're arguing for your side, and so you're even more committed to the position that you're holding. Now, there are techniques that are used. So, for example, arguing for the other side. So, in a controlled setting, for example, in an organization, these are solutions that are proposed, right? Now, argue for the other side for some time, and so you loosen on the argument that you have and such like. But in general, in an uncontrolled discussion where the intent is to defend a position, not to get to a solution, not to find the truth, but to defend and support a particular point of view, then I think it will be like, I don't know of a way in which you can get people to come together. I mean, I'm sure that there are ways to engineer, but none that comes to mind at the moment.
Subhash, can I also add to that? I think, Shweta also kind of made that comment, right? That, the best thing that could have been done, look, this is a lose-lose game, right? So, and what Vasu also said, that if you come into the media and show yourself as the leader of this situation, you're not going to gain anything, right? You're a loser here, right? In such a situation, like somebody like an army, right, kind of spearheading this whole initiative, right, having this sense of authority and nothing to lose, right? They are not the people who will lose image or will lose, following or will lose votes, right? Nothing of that sort. I think in such situations, that is also a solution to do, right? Somebody who doesn't care about these aspects of, popularity and all that, and are not in the losing or winning game, right? It's one
But
of the
Anurag,
solutions.
Anurag, the army has transformed. The army has transformed. This is not the army of.
Absolutely.
And I don't think
especially
that.
with the chief of defense staff, that has been a political appointee. And I mean, even senior levels were political appointed. With the chief of defense staff coming in, it's a totally political organization.
In fact, a lot of
Maybe
people.
a senior judge of the Supreme Court retired, right? Somebody,
Yeah,
right?
Anurag,
something like that. Yeah, with the army. Yeah, some combination.
So, see, last 4-5 years is the first time in the history of independent India that the army has been messed around with and broken protocol. Whether Bipin Rawat going up after, like, never happened. Never has the protocol been broken, and that again is Modi's doing. I'm sorry, but I'm very very particular about this point, which is, see, the government has been obsessed because of one person. Unfortunately, it is like that, about media management and image management. Right? The absolute megalomaniac. Right? This is the definition of megalomania. There is international image, image anywhere, everywhere. Right? So it is all about image management and nothing to do on the ground, which is exact. We will continue to be in this situation. Nobody will come. See, getting the army is like almost accepting defeat in a way, right? If it's a natural calamity, it's a different thing, but this is man-made, literally. They will not do it, right? Because it is completely against their image, number one. Number two, Uddhav Thackeray's this thing, I don't understand Marathi, but I try and kind of do it. In this last 1.5 years, he never spoke about himself. It was always about the crisis, about people. Whatever I had against Shiv Sena, it's a different thing. But Udhav, I find him enormously effective in terms of managing this crisis. Everything is about the crisis and common man and what we're doing, and
He's been
nothing.
very matured, actually. Yeah.
I'm amazed at the way he has come out of on top of it. Right, absolutely amazed, and pleasantly, very very glad that I'm living in this state with such a fantastic leader. But the central government is completely opposite. It's completely image management. Nothing PR management, image management. It's like a marketing campaign. It's like Fair and Lovely. That's it.
I'm sure they're writing the victory narrative now, right? Saying in two
Yeah, yeah,
months,
yeah.
how do we
How
make this
हमने
sound
कैसा
like a
कर दिया?
victory?
Already we've heard the UP Chief Minister say, no, that yesterday he said, right, we've managed the COVID so well, the numbers have started coming down. It says that our strategy has been good.
इसके
So,
बाद भी अगर वोट करेंगे और उनको
No,
जिताएंगे
but
ना then
yeah, no, Vasu, I just want to just one final point, and I think on this issue of specific parties, and I see my parents in Vishakhapatnam, and there is a completely different government there, which is absolutely kind of floating its way through this entire crisis with absolutely nary a care for what is happening to the citizens. I see the same thing in Telangana. I think in Tamil Nadu, they've kind of ridden over it for a very, very long time until it has gone above the neck. Same thing with Karnataka, of course, my sense is that the politicians have found a very, very solid sense of, solid set of people within their own kind of control who are happy to push a narrative day in and day out on every possible social media. And in my view, that is also causing damage to the politicians themselves. They're beginning to get disconnected from what is happening on the ground because there is this whole 1 million, 2 million followers or supporters of your party who are constantly telling you that you're doing the right thing. And I don't think it's helping the politicians because all of this, they're all ending up on the bad side. I mean, people are kind of really frustrated. People are look at the kind of problems that each one of us have experienced over the last month or so.
They're
So,
banking on poor public memory, Subhash, believe me.
yes, agreed.
2 months we'll all have forgotten all this.
then they will again start वही हिंदू मुस्लिम इसमें झगड़ा मैच में हमको लोगों को फंसा देंगे बेवकूफ लोग वही हलवा खा लेंगे फिर से वोट कर लेंगे ऐसे ही चलता रहेगा सिलसिला.
All right, guys. So thanks a lot. And we've tried exploring a topic without trying to get too much into politics and just kind of talk about how we are as people and how do we talk to each other. But yeah, good first attempt.
What
hopefully...
did you do a poll on this, Subhash?
Yeah, I did a poll to understand for specifically Delhi as to who is responsible for the crisis in Delhi.
What did you get?
It was like Arvind Kejriwal was, I think, 18 or 90%. Central government is some 70%. There was multiple coding. So, yeah.
Okay. Super. Thank you.